is magic. Dark magic.
Well, hello there, my name's Vinny Voodoo and I'm playing Warzone Pacific, which for the most part is fairly playable now. There's a few bugs here and there, not least of which if you look at my operator walking down the street here, you'll notice the holster on his left is trying to get away from him. So it's little things like that. Don't stop you playing the game, don't stop you enjoying it. It's just little things that really shouldn't be there that still are. Now, one of the biggest problems currently is lag. Now, there's two different types of causes of lag, and one is on a server side, which is Activision, and one is on a client side, which is you and me and every other player. Now, we can't do anything about the Activision side of things, that's on them, but we can do a few things to tweak our consoles and our internet connection to make the lag a little more tolerable on our end. So without further ado, why don't we go have a look at a few ways we can fix some lag. Right, the first tip is one of the ones that you read most of, and it's definitely one of the ones that's the easiest to do in most cases, and also the one I recommend the highest, and that is to connect your console directly to your router with an Ethernet cable. You then go into your settings and say you're using a wired connection, which will automatically disable Wi-Fi. You see, the problem is Wi-Fi, especially with security on, which you'll almost certainly have, creates a delay in so much as there's handshaking and security to deal with and protocols and buffering, all sorts of stuff that is removed the moment that you hardwire your console to your router if possible. So if you can do that, do that. Oh boy, this is a good one. Not a lot of people know this one. So here it is. If you've got a wireless controller and you plug a cable in, you think you now effectively have a wired controller. Now, not only is that controller being charged by the cable, but also data's going down it. This isn't necessarily the case. On the PlayStation platform, for example, you have to actually go to your settings, devices, controllers, and then communication method, and manually tell it that you want to use the wire for data. So if you've been playing all these years with a wire plugged in, there's a good chance you may as well have just had a wireless controller in the first place. Because unless you tell it you want to send data down that cable, it won't. Now, your platform may have it in a different spot, and here's a little tip as well. You may need to plug the cable in to actually get that setting to appear. So anyway, if you want to chip away at some of the lag, one way is to turn your wireless controller into a true wired controller with that setting. Now, this next option is kind of beyond the scope of what I can include in this video, but I wanted to give you a heads up in case you'd never heard of this term or you'd never realized that your router can do it. But if you have a slightly more advanced router, there's a good chance it has QoS, quality of service, or a load balancing option in the settings. Like I say, every router is going to have them differently. I can't cover it here, but grab your manual. Yes, you're going to have to read the manual and see if you do have load balancing in your router, and if you do, well, send a bit extra data towards Warzone and a bit less to young Timmy next door who's watching Netflix, because it won't affect him, but it will radically benefit you to have the most amount of data going to your console that you can. So look up QoS and load balancing on your router if it has those features. Moving on to DNS, Domain Name Server. Now, this is slightly technical, and if you're uncomfortable with changing the technical settings of your console, just don't do it, because I don't want to be responsible for you not having internet connection on it. But if you want to have a go at this, go to your settings and go to set up internet connection. This is on the PlayStation, obviously it'll be slightly different on the Xbox, and go through until you get to custom, and from there just accept every option on DHCP and everything that appears there until you get to DNS. And in this case, we're going to put in manual numbers. Now, on the screen I'm showing that we're putting in 8.8.4.4 and then 4 8s. You can do this in any order. You can do the primary as 4 8s, or you can do the secondary as 4 8s. It doesn't really matter. What does this mean? Well, it means we're using Google as our domain name server instead of your ISP, and I guarantee no matter which ISP you've got, Google's got faster servers than your ISP. So what is a domain name server? Well, think of it like a phone book where you know the person's name but you don't know their phone number, and you look down and there's Sarah Connor and there's her phone number. The phone number is the IP that most games, because they're static, would connect to. But I've heard nothing but positiveness, and I've actually done it myself, in changing the domain name server to point to Google's domain name server rather than use the default one, which either comes with PlayStation or the ISP that you currently use or whatever. We're manually going to make sure that Google's in control here, and it should aid and speed things up somewhat. Okay, we're going to end on a simple one, and PC users will know this, and that is Warzone is a games as a service type product. And what that means is it's actually running predominantly externally on the servers at Activision, and we're just sort of acting as a kind of capture of what's been calculated over on their end. But because it's also streaming, and it really is hardly using any local textures, most of Caldera, it makes sense to have more room than you need on your hard drive. So ideally you want a minimum of 20% free of your hard drive, and if you go to your settings you'll find your hard drive storage options there, and you're able to delete anything that you can see. If you've only got a 500 gig drive, it's tough because Warzone takes up so much space. But if you're down to 5 gig or less, that will actually cause problems with the streaming part of this game and create that visual lagginess that you get. There's a lot of other reasons why that's there, by the way. It's not just because of this. But as a general rule, like I say, PC users have been doing this for years. A minimum of 20% free on your hard drive should be there at all times. Even better would be 30%. So go and have a look and see if there's some crappy game that you haven't played in ages and delete it. And there we go. I know there's several things that I could have discussed, minor things like, for example, your TV itself could be a cause of lag. A lot of modern TVs have things like a game mode, which reduces a lot of the processing that your TV's doing visually to enable less visual lag, and so on. Is there anything I've missed? Leave me a comment and let me know. And hopefully by the time that you've done all these changes, maybe Activision will have got off their big fat arses and actually fixed lag at their end, and we can actually play with 30 millisecond pings that actually truly represent that, rather than what we currently have, which is, it's pretty bad at the moment. I mean, it's still playable, but it can be intolerable. You're in a building, then you're not, and then you're far away, and then you're near, and so on. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, and it just leaves me to say, my name's Vinny Voodoo, and thanks for watching.